Good morning, everybody. Happy Tuesday. We have an amazing show for everybody today. What do we have today, Krystal?
Indeed, we do. Many interesting developments to talk through this morning. So Trump, yesterday while we were doing our show, he was giving an interview to CNBC's Squawk Box and floated potential cuts to Social Security. We'll talk to you about that. We've also have a Boeing whistleblower who was found dead. A lot of questions there as Boeing is facing increasing scrutiny over many failures. The U.S. just dropped a threat assessment indicating that perhaps Bibi Netanyahu's coalition could fall apart. What is behind that? Bibi also giving a big interview over at Fox News, loves that American English language media, apparently. New questions about the failures of the West in terms of Ukraine. Some really interesting stuff there we want to break down for you. We're also taking a look at Bill Maher revealing his dream ticket. Guys are going to love this one. Saagar's taking a look at a new UFO report and what it reveals and what it does not reveal. Jake Johnston is an expert on Haiti, and he's going to join us to talk about what is unfolding there. So a lot to get to this morning.
Yeah, I'm really excited. So a couple of things. First of all, thank you to everybody who continues to subscribe. We have that discount that remains there that you can go ahead and help us out. We love doing the live stream, and we're going to continue special election coverage like that. If you want to participate, especially in the exclusive content, that's the place to be, breakingpoints.com. Second, Spotify video. So we have had tremendous problems, not on our end, but actually there are various server problems. What we have effectively come back to is that in order to release the show on time, it will be available 11 a.m. or as early as it's ready for YouTube. Unfortunately, again, completely out of our control. Spotify, the servers and all of that are, again, out of our control, they are going to take about an hour or so to process. So for those of you who are asking why Spotify video is not immediately available when we release the show, it is our desire, but technologically not possible right now. Working on a best possible solution. We'll get it to you guys soon, but wanted to make sure all of our premium members had that update.
Yeah, so if it's important to you to get the show as soon as possible, your premium YouTube link is the best way to go. Spotify is just going to take a little longer because it just apparently takes a little longer. So there you go. Just wanted to tell you that we are focused on it. There's just not a lot we can do about it.
There you go. That's
all right. Let's go ahead and get to this interview that Trump gave to CNBC yesterday. A lot of interesting moments, but this one probably was the number one issue that caught people's attention. Trump floating the possibility of cuts to Social Security. Let's take a listen to that.
One thing that I think that at least the perception is that there's not a whole lot of difference between what you think we should do with entitlements or non-discretionary spending and what President Biden is proposing. It's almost the third rail of politics. And we've got a $34 trillion total debt built up, and very little we can do in terms of cutting spending. Discretionary is not going to help. Have you changed your outlook on how to handle entitlements, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, Mr. President? It seems like something has to be done, or else we're going to be stuck at 120% of debt to GDP forever.
So first of all, there is a lot you can do in terms of entitlements, in terms of cutting, and in terms of also the theft and the bad management of entitlements, tremendous bad management of entitlements. There's tremendous amounts of things and numbers of things you can do. So I don't, necessarily agree with the statement. I know that they're going to end up weakening Social Security because the country is weak.
Going to end up weakening Social Security because the country is weak. So anyway, you heard there at the beginning, he says there are many things we could do, talking about cutting. Then he goes on to talk about waste, fraud, and abuse. So his campaign immediately recognized this was a bit of an issue. So put this up on the screen. They sought to walk it back and clarify his stance, claiming that what he was really talking about was that cutting waste. He wasn't talking about cutting benefits. Of course, the Biden-Harris team immediately jumped on it and sent out this tweet, Trump, quote, "There is a lot you can do in terms of cutting Social Security and Medicare." What did you make of all of this, Saagar?
Yeah, I mean, it's an own goal by Trump because one of the most powerful things that he did in 2016 was take the opposite view of everybody else on the stage on entitlements. It's actually been one of the main, I would say, changes that he brought to the mainstream, especially seeing for some Republican politicians embrace it since then. So I thought it was a big problem for him. I mean, this is like he just talks, and it's clear too that people have been inside of his ear, and I think that's the biggest problem. And this was something we saw over and over again in the Trump administration is despite the rhetoric, and frankly, what I actually probably believe that Trump thinks himself, he's still surrounded himself with the likes of Stephen Moore and Larry Kudlow, who's now on Fox and Fox Business, I believe, and he has his own show. There's an entire think tank here like America First Principles, which is staffed of all of his former people. Very likely many of them will be going into the next administration headed by the former Rick Perry person. I mean, we know what these people believe. So this to me is about the waters that he's swimming in and the fact that he would, he's a politically astute man. So a slip up like this, I thought it was a big mistake.
Yeah.
I thought it was a big mistake on his part.
I was frankly surprised. I guess it was a bit of a reminder to me of how stupid he can be at times.
Yeah, maybe you're right.
And how much he can shoot himself in the foot. Things are not static. And the fact that he walked it back doesn't really make a difference because the Biden team has their SOT now. They have their talking point. They can go out, hey, Trump said he wants to cut Social Security and Medicare, so who are you going to believe? What's the expression, him or your lying eyes? Whatever. Yes. Anyway, they've got the SOT and the clip that they want for the ads. They can roll this out and claim that he wants to cut Social Security and Medicare. And I don't think it's crazy to think that he would, just given, as Saagar was saying, the type of staffers that come in, the type of operation that is here in D.C., the type of instincts. I mean, Republicans, this has been something they've been seeking for a very long time. So I thought that was a really interesting and I think significant moment, given how important those programs are to so many Americans. There was another moment that may be more personally significant to Donald Trump, which is that he cannot seem to shut up about E. Jean Carroll. He's already been hit with multi-tens of millions of dollars in terms of defamation suit against her, and yet he still had more things to say about her in this interview unbidden. Let's take a listen.
People sometimes wonder, how to prioritize, and you just keep
well, the
charging.
legal issues aren't, hey, Joe, the legal issues aren't legal issues. They're Biden issues. Biden put Fannie, beautiful Fannie, who's turned out to be now a corrupt district attorney, but in my opinion, they're almost all corrupt. All of the stuff that you see is weaponized government. The DA in New York is being run by the DOJ. They put their top person into the DA's office. All of this stuff, including the Miss Bergdorf Goodman, a person I never met. I have no idea who she is, except one thing. I got sued. From that point on, I said, wow, that's crazy what this is. I got charged. I was given a false accusation and had to post a $91 million bond on a false accusation. People aren't moving into New York because of the kind of crap they're pulling on me.
Right.
So he, goes on there about E. Jean Carroll. Her legal team says they continue to monitor his statements because he's already had 2 defamation judgments go against him in this case.
He's got a $91 billion bond against him. This is going to cost him some serious money between that and the, the business trial, the fraud trial that happened, the civil fraud trial. And look, you may think they're illegitimate, but he's got to pay no matter what in the state of New York. Apparently, he's already appealed the court. This is already leading to a liquidity crisis within him. Another thing I'm not sure if you saw is that the RNC actually defeated a measure which said that their specific campaign cash can be used for Donald Trump's legal expenses. So it is officially now open, the possibility, on top of a new cleaning of the House currently happening over at the RNC, that some of the money that actually be raised by the party could then be used for overall legal expenditure. So I think it was a very specific reason why Trump and his team went very, very hard to make sure that the Haley Barbour kind of amendment inside the RNC was defeated. And this is exactly why. Because politically, at a certain point, I'm curious what you think. Personally, obviously, he should shut up. But politically, every time he attacks the legal system and tarnishes or goes after the people who are coming against him, it does build him up into sort of a martyr. So he is in a bit of an impossible situation.
A martyr with his base, which he's already won.
Right.
So what does that really benefit him? I mean, to be honest with you, I think both politically and obviously from a legal perspective, he should probably shut up about E. Jean Carroll because there was not that much media coverage of it. The more that it's in front of people that a jury found it credible that she was actually raped and that he had to pay these tremendous amounts because of that finding, you know, the more that sinks in for the public. It's kind of a Streisand effect of a case that was on the back burner because there were so many other criminal cases, and this was a civil suit, so it got a little bit less media fanfare around it. So no, I don't think it's good for him to continue to bring up E. Jean Carroll and remind people of the specifics of this case and what it was ultimately all about. One other interesting moment from this interview, something we touched on yesterday. So back when Trump was in office, he seemed amenable to a potential TikTok ban. Obviously didn't actually get any changes through, but he seemed amenable to it. Now he seems to have switched his position. He got asked about that with CNBC. Let's take a listen to how he explained it.
You guys decide. You make that decision because it's a tough decision to make. Frankly, there are a lot of people on TikTok that love it. There are a lot of young kids on TikTok who will go crazy without it. There are a lot of users. There's a lot of good and there's a lot of bad with TikTok. But the thing I don't like is that without TikTok, you can make Facebook bigger. And I consider Facebook to be an enemy of the people, along with a lot of the media.
Mr. President, though, is TikTok, but do you believe that TikTok is a national security threat or not? Because if it is, and I believe that the emergency powers order that you had put in place at the time suggested that it was that not true?
I do believe that. I do believe it. And we have to very much go into privacy and make sure that we are protecting the American people's privacy and data rights. And I agree. But, we also have that problem you have that problem with Facebook and lots of other companies, too. I mean, they get the information. They get plenty of information and they deal with China. And they'll do whatever China wants.
So there he is trying to clean this up, talking about, I think basically Saagar, he realized that this was a total political dud because so many people use TikTok and, to take it away from them would be a disaster. And I do think that the personal vendetta against Mark Zuckerberg looms large as well.
I was talking with some friends, and I believe that this is one of the biggest and possibly most impactful elements outside of the election of Stop the Steal. Because a huge, basically the high IQ version of Stop the Steal is no, bamboo ballots and all that stuff didn't happen. It was vote by mail, and vote by mail was because of Zuckerbucks.
What, I don't even know what the hell this is about.
So it all goes back to some philanthropic donations by the Zuckerberg Priscilla Chan Foundation or whatever, Priscilla Zuckerberg Foundation that gave to organizations that were putting out the vote and to Democratic think tanks. The Time Magazine article is also a very, very critical part of the high IQ Stop the Steal thesis. For those who don't know, it's basically a story about how Democratic billionaires spent a lot of money trying to swing the election for Biden.
Oh,
it's not illegal.
Politics in America,
this
guys.
Is what I'm saying. Guys, it's not does it bother me? Yeah, it's not illegal. It's not even honestly nefarious because they openly admit it in their 501c3s. And by the way, if you want to do something about that, there's this thing called Citizens United that we could all overturn and we could change.
Amen.
And we could take politics, the spending out of politics. But, do you really want to do that? Or do you also want your bucks,
your billionaires to side with you?
Yeah. Let's all just be really honest about what happened. It is true that the forces of capital and culture definitely were against Trump for the most part in the 2020 election.
Some were, some weren't.
But a significant amount, specifically of technology, which again comes back to this. This has now been retconned into this major thing about how it's Zuckerberg, specifically the Zuckbucks, which drove out the vote, and that goes to a Facebook thesis about voting, which is now spun into hating Facebook more than they hate TikTok. And
it's funny, though, because Facebook is such a bastion for conservatives. Conservative content does extraordinarily well on Facebook. So that's part of what is amusing to me about this.
None of this is coherent. It has to do with money, and it has to do with this general opposition to Google and to Facebook, which they're not wrong. People and the heads of those companies are Democrats and all of that. But again, it's about a much bigger structural thing if you actually want to dig into it, which most of these people don't. I think that genuinely is the major impetus behind this. Trump himself hates Zuckerberg with a passion that is genuinely difficult to describe as a result of this. And a lot of this traces back to Molly Hemingway in her book, who wrote a whole thing about how big tech stole the election. So this is the thesis. It's been very, very mainstream now at this point if people are interested and want to go and like look at the genesis. And I do think that the TikTok stuff is a result of that. Not to mention, Trump very recently made peace with the Club for Growth, who he had a bit of a spat with them in 2022. They're cool now. The major backer of Club for Growth is Jeff Yass, the guy who owns a $21 billion stake inside of ByteDance. Recently hired Kellyanne Conway. He's been spending a lot of time down at Mar-a-Lago. So if you combine personal corruption, hiring people around him, political convenience, and target, because TikTok ban's main beneficiary would be Facebook and or Google, then it's like the perfect storm for Trump to reverse face. And let's be honest, I mean, this is a man who has no problem just like flip-flopping on a dime.
Yeah.
He has no shame.
Clearly.
And, you know, in many respects, this is his fault. Like back in 2019, he tried to do it. He was so incompetent that it wasn't able to actually get done, and they didn't follow through. And now, you know, he's in a situation where Biden, or at least whatever this House bill, is trying to do the exact same thing Trump did, but then he can't, he's opposing it because it's Biden, and now there's all these other conditions that are attached.
Do you think that his position changes the Republican Party orientation towards TikTok? Because obviously they take a lot of cues from him.
No, actually, there is a lot more anti-TikTok sentiment, as I understand it, in the House. But that said, as I said yesterday, I think this bill will pass the House. I do not think it will pass the Senate. The Senate has, first of all, I mean, you know, structurally, Krystal, like a single senator can hold something up, whereas a single House member cannot.
Yeah.
Rand Paul's already basically against the bill for a lot of the libertarian reasons that we discussed. There's enough Democrats also who I don't think would be on the record who would want to sign something like this. And then there's all these procedural ways you can kill something because they also have all their own TikTok bills and they have all these other considerations that they would do. So I read this analysis too from a lot of the Capitol Hill watch this morning. Most people don't think this thing has a chance in hell in the Senate. So I don't think this will be a major problem.
Hey guys, if you like that video, go to breakingpoints.com, become a premium subscriber, and help us build the best independent media organization on the planet.
That's right. We're subscriber funded. We're building something new. We want to replace these failing mainstream media organizations.
So again, to subscribe, it's breakingpoints.com.